Hello. You gonna say hi? Hello, welcome to Essentials class. We're doing things quite differently these days, aren't we? Very differently, right? So our lives have kind of been turned upside down. I guess our classes have been too a little bit, but we're going to try and pick up again, just hopefully to do it as smoothly as possible from where Mary Carol left off last week. And we have been having a very different time in life being at home, right?
Yes.
But we hope that you all have been doing well, and we have missed everybody very much, haven't we?
Yes.
They miss their friends a whole lot. But I think some good things have been coming of staying home, which has been very interesting to see. So I would be very interested to hear your stories of your family time and how it has been good and how much time you've been able to spend together, right? More quality time. And I've been able to get things done in the house that I usually don't get to have time to do, right? So we hope that you all are having some blessings in the midst of all of the crazy stuff too. We're going to jump right in. And I'm going to pick up where Miss Mary Carol left off with verbals. If you all remember that last week we introduced verbals for the year. And verbals are a very different part of speech. They're something that we use all the time, but we actually don't talk about a lot. And last week we did infinitives, right? Do you all remember what the definition of an infinitive is? Do you remember the definition of an infinitive? An infinitive is two plus a verb used as a noun, adjective, or adverb, right? I can hear Lizzie in my head doing this from the time she was very little, right? They learned it in class. Infinitive is two plus a verb used as a noun, adjective, or adverb, right? So now we're moving on to participles, okay? So our new one today is going to be participles. That's going to be our new verbal. And we're looking at chart Q, okay? Jared will be next week.
Oh.
Miss Brooks is going to do Jared's next week. So this is what we will be doing today. This is going to be our new information. So just to give you a rundown of what we will do in Essentials today, in EEL, part of Essentials today. We're looking at our compound complex structure. We're doing all of the sentence purposes this week. So in your practice, you will do all the purposes. We're looking at the patterns SVLPN and SVLPA. Okay, so we're looking at our nouns and adjectives, our predicate nouns and adjectives also. And we're going to be reviewing adjectives, okay, which is actually where our participles come in. That actually goes right into reviewing adjectives. And we're going to be doing our new verbal called participles, okay? So that's what we're doing. We're going to be reviewing all charts this week. And we're going to be doing EEL tasks 1 through 6, of course, that we have been doing. I hope that you all have been able to do a little bit of practice with your quid et quo, especially second and third year students. You all should be doing a little bit of practice with your quid et quo. And that's something that I like to try and get to in class, although we don't very often get to do it. But this week would be a good time to do that because there's actually not a whole lot of new info and it's all supposed to be review, okay? So before we get going any further into our new grammar, we're going to do a little bit of review of a few definitions. We're going to start with our sentence structures. So, John, can you tell me what a complex sentence is?
A complex sentence consists of at least one independent clause and one dependent clause.
One independent clause and one dependent clause, right? That's our complex sentence. And Jude, what is a compound sentence?
A compound sentence consists of at least two independent clauses joined
by a coordinating conjunction. And what are coordinating conjunctions?
For and more but one itself.
Can you say it slowly?
For and more but one itself.
Right, and how do we remember those?
Fanboys.
Fanboys, right? So when we think of compound, we think of fanboys. For and more but or yet so, right?
I love fans.
So, lean forward because you're not in the video. I'm going to get you in the video. Okay, so then if we know our compound and our complex, then when we put them together and we have our compound complex, which is what we've been working on, then you're going to actually put the definitions of both of them together, right? So what is the definition of a compound complex sentence?
A compound complex sentence consists of at least two independent clauses and one dependent clause.
Consists of at least two independent clauses and one dependent clause.
Or dependent clause, right?
We want to adopt your law.
So, okay. Now, we're going to do a little review on what an infinitive is. okay? Just be able to use it in a sentence. So we're gonna look at the one that's actually used, the infinitive that's actually used on our chart. We're going to use both of these examples this week just so that you have them on your paper and you can kind of look at them too. But it says, to fly is my desire. That's the infinitive that we started with last week. To fly is my desire. And what it is it's taking a verb, to plus a verb, right? Fly is a verb. And it's taking to fly and it's making it into a noun, right? So you could say, to play ball is my desire, right? And it's actually taking something that would be an action, a verb, and it's making it into a thing, like it's a concept. That's right, it's an idea. So that's what your infinitives do. Now, your participles are actually going to do it in a different way because they're not going to be nouns, right? But we're actually going to use them as adjectives. Before we go to that, I would like to ask you to tell me something about an OCN or an OCA. Who can tell me anything about that?
An object, complement, adjective, and adjective, complement, noun.
Yep.
Is that all?
Mm-hmm. So an object, complement, noun, and an object, complement, adjective. That's just review time. An object, complement, noun does what? Renames.
Or describes.
It renames or replaces the subject. Object, complement, adjective describes the subject and what it has become as an action of the verb. And what describes the subject is what I meant to say. When we're looking at a predicate noun and a predicate adjective, remember I had talked about this in my class, that our OCN and OCA are kind of very similar to the PN and the PA in that what they do with the subject or what they do with the direct objects is very similar, okay? So it's like it's equaling, right? We say that our PN equals the subject, right? And our OCN equals the direct object, right? So anyway, it's a good way to just kind of be able to equate the two and see the similarities with those two. So we're going to go to our adjectives. We're going to be reviewing on our adjectives. I'm going to come up to the camera for a minute. So this is our adjective chart. We're on chart L. You can pull out your chart L and look at it, right? Can somebody give me the definition of what an adjective is? We learned this in foundations. What is an adjective? Can you say it?
An adjective modifies a noun or pronoun by describing, qualifying, or limiting it. Questions what kind of many we choose.
Okay. An adjective, you want to do it slowly? An adjective modifies a noun or a pronoun
by describing, qualifying, or limiting.
And answers the questions.
What kind, how many, which, whose.
What kind, how many, which, and whose. So we're doing, you have to speak it really fast.
Me?
Okay. No. So what we're doing with our adjectives, besides just reviewing, you can review your adjectives chart this week, okay? You can maybe use that as one of your charts for sure that you're doing. But we're going to actually take that idea and say, okay, an adjective is answering the question, what kind, how many, which, and whose. And it is modifying a noun or pronoun, right? That's what an adjective does. It modifies a noun or pronoun. So what we're doing with our verbal, this is our verbal chart again, we're at the bottom with the participles, is we're taking something that would normally be a noun, would normally be a verb, and we're actually turning it into an adjective to make that verb modify a noun or pronoun, okay? So it's sort of changing the purpose of it. And what we're going to do to show you how that works is we're going to look at chart D. And chart D is one that a lot of people have memorized, I think, by now, because this is our principal parts of verbs. Got a bunch of giggle monsters back here. Okay, our principal parts of verbs. And if you can notice on our principal parts of verbs, up at the top, you see present participle and past participle, okay? So these actually have our participles listed for all of these verbs, okay? All of these verbs. So we're looking at our present participle and past participle as being been. So when we look at something like, let's say, To sit. Okay, we're going to look at to sit. That's on here. The present participle would be sitting. Sitting. How do we take sitting from a verb to making it into an adjective? So we would say, using it as a verb would be, that duck, let's see, that duck is sitting, right? That duck is sitting. If we're taking it and we want to make it into an adjective, then we would have to be modifying a noun by using sitting, right? So how would we modify a noun by using the word sitting? There's a good phrase that is used. It's called, I feel like a sitting duck. Have y'all heard that? A sitting duck. It means you're just kind of like sitting there waiting for something to happen, right? Lean forward.
It usually means you're about to die, actually.
That's something bad could happen, right? You're sitting there
That's what
waiting.
people usually say.
Waiting for the coyote to come, maybe, right? Okay, so sitting is a verb, but when you use it as sitting duck, it becomes an adjective, right? So we could take another one and we could say that was a present participle, so that's like a sitting duck. I'm a sitting duck right now, right? It's present tense. If we take a past participle, let's see, we will take broken. That vase is broken. Or that screen, we have a screen over there, that's broken. That screen is broken, right?
No, it's not.
Actually, that's not a good example of that. That's not a good example. That's not using it as the past participle. Okay, let's see. So using it as a verb, I have broken, right? I have broken that screen. I have broken that screen. That would be the verb. Then if we're trying to use broken as an adjective, we would say that broken screen, right, is over there. That broken screen is over there, right? That broken vase we threw away, right? And that's using broken, which is your past participle version, form of your verb. We're using it as an adjective, right? So it's modifying a noun. It's not acting as the action anymore. Okay. So the way that you can tell if a participle is past or present is usually by the ending. Okay, so you're going to look at the ending, and they can actually have on your. I'm going to show you your chart again. It can actually have several different endings. You can look at your chart. See, you can have the verb plus ing, the verb plus ed, en, or t. Now, typically when we're talking about it, you're basically going to tell the present or past by the ending. So if it is an ing, it's going to be present tense, right? It means it's happening right now. If it's an en or an ed or an et, usually it's an ed, right? Then you're gonna be able to tell that it has already happened. So that's going to be your past participle, okay? So your verbs that act primarily as adjectives. That is the definition of what a participle is. It's a verb that acts primarily as an adjective, okay? So I'm going to give you all a little bit of a challenge on this, and I want you to take your chart, or you can come up with other ones too. It doesn't have to be a word on this chart, but this chart has good ideas for what your present participles and your past participles are. I want you to take some of these. This is just a challenge for you. You can send them to your tutor or you can send them to me. It doesn't matter. I might be your tutor anyway. Or just give them into your mom, whatever your parent tells you to do. But take some of these and try to come up with some sentences that use them as adjectives, okay, instead of as verbs. So instead of having them as the action of the sentence, you're going to have them as modifying a noun or a pronoun, okay? So pick them. It's the last two columns on your verb chart D, okay? So that's just my little challenge for you to do this week. So right now, I'm going to actually get a sentence for you all, and we are going to, this is a neat sentence that I printed out. That was a good example for week 22. So what we're going to do is I'm going to tell you the sentence, And I'm going to give you a minute if you want to get some paper. I'm going to tell you the sentence, and then you are going to try and write it down. I'm going to dictate. You try to copy it and write it down. And one of the things that I want to remind you, okay, is that you need to think about the punctuation. When we start doing compound complex sentences, there are oftentimes there's several commas in them, and you have to kind of remember what the rules are. If you need to go look up the rules, you can do that too. Your mom can help you. And you want to think about where the commas are in this, okay? So your punctuation does matter, right? When we're doing our dialectic. So task 1 is going to be dictate. I'm going to dictate the sentence to you. You can pause this if you need time to go get paper or go get your analytical task sheet, okay? We're going to dictate the sentence, and then we're going to go over the mechanics, and we're going to actually get into diagramming it, okay? So if you're ready, your sentence is, the shooting star, which is bright, is hot, but the cratered moon is cold. That's a long sentence, right? That's a compound complex, right? The shooting star, which is bright, is hot, but the cratered moon is cold. Okay? Now you go ahead and pause. You can pause your video right now, and you try to write that out and get your punctuation correctly. And once you have finished that and you've filled out the rest of your task sheet right there, we will go on to our question confirmation and diagramming, okay? Okay. So John, I'm going to let you come up here and do it. Okay, so we're going to walk through. John is going to be labeling the sentence. I've written it out for him. And we're going to go through our question confirmation. I'm going to flip it around because I'm pretty sure that all of our charts and things that I've been showing have been backwards because I'm using my phone. So I'm going to try and flip it around. Okay, this is our sentence. The shooting star, which is bright, is hot, but the cratered moon is cold. So John is going to start labeling these, hopefully in a way that you can read them. And we're going to go through our question confirmation. So we're going to say, what is our first independent clause? We're going to say, what is hot? Or who or what is the sentence about, right? We say, it is about
the shooting star. Wait.
It's just about the star, right? So it's about the star. So what is star? Star is our subject noun. What is being said about star?
It's bright.
The star is
Bright.
okay. What? No, that's not our verb though.
What? Oh, shooting. Wait.
The star.
Shooting.
No. Well, no, that's different, right? Remember what we were talking about with shooting? It's an ing verb. The star is. The star is, right? So is our verb, and it is what? No, that's not our independent clause. We're getting a little confused here. So we're looking at just the independent clause. So guys, our independent clause is the shooting star is hot, right? The shooting star is hot. So what is being said about our star? The star is, right? It is what? It is hot. Does hot rename or modify star? Does it rename or modify star? So yes, so it is our predicate adjective. Right? Okay. Is a linking verb, right? Because it's being used with a predicate adjective. So it's verb linking, right? What kind of star? What kind of star? Shooting star. Now what is shooting? It's
No.
Is it in the predicate? No, you're getting confused. What are we learning about today? So what are we learning about today?
Predicate. We are learning about predicate today, right? No. Participle.
Wrong P word, that's right.
I'm not thinking straight.
That's okay. Okay, so what kind of star? A shooting star. Shooting is an ing verb that's being used as it's describing star. So what is it being used as? An adjective. So we're going to say adjective. And in parentheses, you can put participle or just put P-A-R-T.
Parentheses, yeah.
So that is our participle. Is it a present participle or a past participle? We look at the ending. It's an ing ending. Ing means that it's happening right now. It's a shooting star, right? Okay, so it's a present participle. The is an article adjective, that's right. Okay, now we're going to look at that dependent clause, that little tiny dependent clause that we skipped over, right? What is bright? Which is our subject pronoun, right? So subject pronoun. What is being said about which?
It is. Which is.
It is. So is our. It's our verb, and it is what?
It is bright.
Right.
P-A, and that would be verb linking also.
Good job. So which is bright? Does bright rename which? Yes, it's a predicate adjective, right? And is our linking verb. So let's look at our second independent clause, okay? Our second independent clause. But is a
Coordinating conjunction.
conjunction, that's right. So, but is a conjunction. What is cold?
Create no moon.
Moon. Moon is our subject noun. What is being said about moon? What is being said about moon? It is.
It is cold, and then that would be.
Oh, you're getting ahead of me. So moon is what? Moon is cold. Right? Cold is the predicate adjective because it renames moon. Then we have what? A linking verb. And cratered is an adjective. It's a participle. And what kind of participle? Past participle, right? Because it has an ed ending and it happened in the past. And the is an article adjective, right? So this is what we're looking at. The shooting star, which is bright, is hot, but the cratered moon is cold. And we have everything labeled, right? So you all can pause this if you need to check what you're doing. Okay. Now I'm going to show you how we, I'm actually going to show you.
Diagram?
Yeah, I'm going to show them the diagram. So I'm going to actually just show you on the screen the diagram, and I'm going to let you all go ahead and diagram with your teacher, your mom, or your dad at home. Okay, but I'm going to give it to you on the screen, and I'll hold it for a few seconds, and then you all can go from there. If mom and dad, if you want to not show them this, and you want them to try to do it on their own first, then go ahead and stop the video right now, and you can go ahead and play it ahead. I'm going to give it a couple seconds. Okay, we are going on to Unit 9, all right, in IEW, and Unit 9 is called the critique model, so it's writing a critique of a story or a movie or a book, you know, whatever it is that you're doing. This is basically IEW's replacement for a book report, and a lot of your moms have probably already seen on the IEW training video that they talk about that this to them is a preferred way of doing a report instead of using an actual book report. And I want to start by telling you all, and I know that my screen is kind of backwards because I'm using my cell phone and looking at myself, so it's a little bit confusing because you're seeing it in mirror mode. But just so you know, the critique model, which is Unit 9, I have my little posters, uses Unit 3, which is our story sequence chart, as basically we kind of go backwards. Instead of coming up with all of these, you know, we're actually going to recount them and use our introduction and our conclusion to give our analysis and our basically our opinion about what that story is. Okay, so it's a little bit different. But our critique model for Unit 9 actually puts the story sequence chart as the middle 3 paragraphs, okay? All right? And of course, you can do it in more than 5 paragraphs. You can actually make it a lot longer. if you want to, depending on what your assignment would be. But for right now, we're going to be using the critique model using 5 paragraphs, okay? So it's going to be 3 body paragraphs which use the story sequence chart, okay? So our characters and setting, our conflict and or our problem, right? And then our climax and resolution. So we're using that as the middle 3 paragraphs. And we're using our introduction and our conclusion as part of our critique. That's the beginning and the ending of our critique. Now, Miss Brooke is actually going to be doing the introduction and conclusion next week for our critique on Unit 9. This week we do basically the story sequence chart. So what we're going to do is we're going to read lesson 28. So you all can open up your IEW book, your history book, okay, to lesson 28, which is on page 233. And this one is Genghis Khan, okay? So we're going to actually read the story. We're going to read the story and we're going to just discuss for a minute, okay? We're not going to take too long doing this, but I'm just going to have my boys kind of come up with ideas and then I may throw out some ideas for you all to be able to do this at home, okay? But we're going to get you started. So just so you know, I'm reading on page 233 where it's showing that just the basic idea of what you will be doing this week, which you all can adapt or your moms can adapt it. But our goals for this week are going to be to introduce Unit 9 and our formal critique structure model, to create a keyword outline, so you're going to be doing a 3-paragraph KWO, okay, to write the body paragraphs of a very short critique, so this is our 5-paragraph critique, to correctly use some critique vocabulary, and to correctly use new vocabulary words, which are analyze, aghast, tragic, and rash. Okay, those are the vocabulary words that you should try and use in your writing this week. Okay, so I'm turning the page. And we are going to look at page 235. Okay, so turn your page to page 235.
235. Mommy, are we going to be writing this paper?
We'll talk about that after. 235. There we go, dude. And we're going to look at this page. Okay, this new unit, you will be combining the skills of 2 previous units. So you have already learned the elements of a well-written story. Okay, the story sequence chart. You have learned to write conclusion and introduction paragraphs for essays. This unit, you're going to use these skills to help you write critiques of literature. So what you're doing is you're taking your intro and conclusion and you're taking your story sequence chart and you're basically putting them together. So it's really not complicated. It's a slight variation on what we've actually already done. So you don't have to worry too much about this one, right? When you critique a story, you do not retell it in its entirety. Instead, you explain the most important aspects, okay? You're not telling the whole story, right? We're funneling. We're doing our funneling just like we do with information. You can't retell the whole story, especially if you read a whole book, right? Especially if you read a whole book. So you're telling just enough so your reader can follow your discussion of your opinion, which is the most important part of this, okay? You will create a brief summary. You will talk about the characters, the setting, the conflict, the climax, and the resolution, okay? Your concluding paragraph is where you put your opinion, okay? You tell what you like or what you don't like. Finally, you add an introduction paragraph to the beginning that gives some background information about the story and author. Can you pay attention? All right, the Unit 9 body paragraphs follow the story sequence chart, okay? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to read the story, and we're just going to kind of briefly discuss the story sequence chart to give you some ideas of what you would write on your KWO, okay? So we're looking at pages 236 and 237, and this is where you're going to read and where you're going to write down your story sequence chart. So if your mom wants you to start doing that while you're watching the video, you can, or if you want to watch the video and do it on your own time, that's fine too. Okay? All right, so this is Genghis Khan and his hawk. You all could read along. It might help you in case you can't understand as well.
Wait a second.
Okay? Would you like to read some? Okay, read very clearly, okay?
Where?
So we're going to start at the top. John's going to read a little bit of it. Actually, you know what? come and put it on you so it's easy.
Genghis Khan ruled the huge Mongolian Empire in the early 1200s. He was a ruthless warrior and a respected king who commanded multitudes. When he was not at war, the Khan enjoyed his favorite sport of hunting, and when he hunted, his loyal hawk always accompanied him. His hawk was his best friend. He loved his master and loved hunting. With his keen eyes and his master's great skill, their hunting expeditions were always a success. One day, while on a hunt, the Khan wandered farther than he had intended. In an intense chase, a deer had led him out of the shade of the forest trees, and he found himself in a barren field with the sun beating down on his head. He was not thirsty. He was hot and thirsty. He had to find water soon, for he stopped pursuing the deer, which had disappeared anyway. And headed back to the forest looking for a stream. As he approached the forest, he heard the soft, constant trickling of water. He followed the sound. It led him to a high cluster of massive rocks, over which a small flow of crystal clear water fell. It was a welcome sight. The Khan quickly took his cup from his pack and placed it under the stream. When the cup was filled, he brought it to his lips, anticipating how cool and refreshing it would be. However, before he could take a drink, his hawk swooped down and knocked the cup from his hand. The Khan was stunned and angered by his apparently cruel action and shouted, "You crazy bird! You've spilled my water all over the ground." The Khan picked up his cup again and filled it with water. But again he lifted it to his lips. The hawk flew down and knocked it from his hand. "Insolent bird!" he yelled as he waved his arms at the hawk. "You'll not deprive me of drink a third time." With that, the Khan readied his sword. When the bird dove for the cup a third time, the Khan struck him with his sword. The bird plummeted to the ground dead. Now, by the time the Khan retrieved his cup, the flow of water had diminished so much that the cup was only filled one drop at a time. Impatiently, the Khan decided to climb higher to find the source of the flow. As he neared the top ledge, he spotted a large pool. As he looked closer, he was aghast at what he saw. In the pool was a dead viper, cut at the throat so that all of its deadly venom had spilled into the water. "What have I done?" he lamented, for at that moment he realized that his hawk had only been trying to save his life. "I have killed my best friend. What a rash fool I was to not have trusted him and to have let my temper consume me so." With that, he climbed down the rocks, picked up the stricken bird, and headed home. He had lost a friend, but he had learned a valuable lesson he would never forget.
Okay, so we're going to quickly do our KWO. Just give a couple ideas for it. We're not going to do the whole thing, and we're not going to do it on a board or anything like that. We're going to let you do it on your sheet at home, okay? But we're just going to have a quick discussion of some ideas and things that you can look for in this. So when we look at paragraph, it's got Roman numerals 2 because it's going to be our first body paragraph, which is our second paragraph, right? And you're looking at characters and settings. So on your page on 237, you can look on the left side and it says characters and setting. It says describe the time and place the story occurs. This is the setting, right? And then name and describe each main character. So where is it set? What is the place where it's set?
Rome? No. Mongols.
Mongolia. Okay, so it was set in Mongolia.
Not Romans.
You're not paying attention. Okay, so Mongolia, right? Genghis Khan is Mongolian, okay? So it was set in Mongolia in the 1200s is what the story says, right? And where were they? Were they out on a lake? Were they in a field? Where were they?
They were in a field. Well, sort of.
No, it says what they were going through. What was it?
Forest.
A forest. So,
but they did come to like a barren field.
Right. So it's set in the forest in Mongolia in the 1200s, right? Who are the characters in this story?
Genghis Khan and
the
hawk.
And his hawk. That's right. Tell us about Genghis Khan a little bit. So give us a description of him.
King Kong. No, Genghis Kong.
He was kind of known for being a little bit crazy, right?
Yeah.
Maybe more than a little bit crazy. He was a hunter, right?
And a king,
He was
sort of.
a warrior, wasn't he?
Yes.
Okay. And he clearly had a temper
Yes.
because he was pretty rash and quick to do something crazy.
Killed his best friend.
So
His best friend.
we know all of those things about Jude. So all we're doing right now is we're describing him, okay? We're not getting to the storyline yet. We're just describing the characters in the setting, okay? So he's kind of a crazy control freak with a bad temper, right?
Oh my gosh.
He was happy to start hunting, and he was hunting with his friend the hawk, right? Okay, so that's what the setting is. When we move on to conflict or problem, we look at what was the problem. What became a problem after he had been hunting for a while?
Oh, he got thirsty.
Right, he was very, very thirsty, right?
So was his hawk problem.
So he was looking for water, and he found a little bit of water dripping from the rocks, right? Okay, so the conflict or the problem is that Genghis Khan needs water, and then what happens? He finds it,
Yes.
and then what?
And then he kills his hawk because he keeps taking it.
You skipped a few things, right? So what did he try to do when he found the water?
He tried to drink it out of his cup.
Yeah, but it was bad, but he didn't know if it was hawk.
What, Jude?
So it was bad, so the hawk tried to save him, and he kept sleeping down and taking it, but he killed him with it.
Okay. So what happens in the conflict or problem is that he needs water. He finds it dripping from some rocks. He tries to fill his cup. The hawk gets it. He knocks it out of his hand. He does it a second time. The hawk knocks it out of his hand, and Genghis Khan loses his temper, right?
What was bad about the water anyway?
Julie.
Sorry.
Maybe we need to read our story about 3 more times, I think. Okay, we'll read our
I
story
knew
a few
something
more
was
times.
bad
So,
when he came to a school.
Should I read
So-
it again?
we'll do that on our own time, okay? We won't worry about that. Jude will read it on his own time. So, he was very angry, and he killed the bird with his sword, right? He climbed up to the source of the water. Why did he climb up and not just try to get water from right where it was?
Because he was impatient.
No, that's
That's
not.
what it says. That's what it says.
It's not what the story says. By the time he went back to get his third cup, it was only 1 drip at a time. So he went to go find the source
The Khan tried to climb higher.
Okay. because it was only dripping by
Yeah.
that time. Okay, so he wasn't patient. So he climbs to the source of the water, and then what does he see?
A dead viper.
Okay.
Cut at the neck, so all the venom was in the water.
Oh,
Dude.
that's what happened. I knew I heard the dead viper.
So he realized that the water was poisoned with venom from the viper. And what? So what was really we're into the climax and resolution now. So we're in numeral 4.
The hawk was trying to save his best friend, but not. But in the other way, he killed his.
That's right. So
Which was the opposite.
So was the problem solved or not?
No.
Yes.
Well, sort of, in a way.
I would consider this a tragedy.
Yes, but the problem was.
I don't know.
So what was the problem that we identified? What was the conflict or the problem?
Conflict of the problem was the fact that he killed his bird, and that there was that the water was poisonous, but he didn't know about it.
The original what was the problem from the beginning of the story? What was
He was thirsty.
He was thirsty. Okay,
How
so
was that?
there are several issues in this story, but the original conflict was that he needed water. Did we resolve the conflict? Did he ever find his water?
No.
No.
No, and he
But
goes
we
home.
assumed he found
Maybe when he got home,
Yeah.
he goes home with a dead bird, still not having gotten any water. So I would say that's somewhat tragic,
Is there a
right?
part
Yep.
2 to this?
So what might be the outcome? What might be something that you would say is the moral of this story? What did he do that he should not have done? Maybe we'll leave it at that. You don't need to answer that. We're going to let everybody answer that for themselves. So you're going to ask yourself, what is the outcome for the main character at the end of the story? And identify, okay? Now it says identify this as the resolution. Now I don't think that his need for a drink gets resolved, but there might be a bigger thing that he learns, from it. So we're going to leave that. You guys want to say goodbye to everyone?
Goodbye. Goodbye.
All right, we're going to leave it at that for class for this week. So we have now done our EEL and our IEW. I think it may have run a little bit longer this week, but we were trying to go through it.
You can do math at home.
You can do math at home. I'm actually considering trying to do maybe a math game or two that people could play along with, even though everybody's not in the same room. But we may end up trying to do that one of the next couple weeks. So we hope y'all are staying well, and we